Today I want to remember the mother of Abul Fadl Abbas. For her Masayib was so great. If you ever have a hajat that is not being fulfilled, if you ever have a wish that you are not getting, it is something that you actually desire in life, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the name of Ummul Baneen. There's no way He will say no. Why? She gave everything. They say that every day Ummul Baneen would come out of a house in Medina and ask the Muslims, is there any news of Hussein? No. Until one day Imam Zainul Abidin, Sayyidah Zainab and the whole group of the Qafila of Aba Abdullah returned back to the city of Medina. But before Imam Sajjad enters Medina, he stops at the outskirts of Medina. He calls one of his companions by the name of Bishr. He says, Ya Bishr, your father was a poet. Are you a poet as well? Bishr says, yes, I am a poet. Imam Sajjad says, Ya Bishr, can you go into the city of Medina and can you tell everybody what happened to us in Karbala, and then we will enter the city. So Bishr enters into the city of Medina, stands next to the grave of Rasulullah, and he begins to say, Ya Ahl Yathrib ala muqam lakum biha qutil al-Husayn fi Karbala. O people of Medina, leave your houses and get out, for Hussein has been killed in Karbala. All the Muslims gather to hear what Bishr has to say. As Bishr is narrating the story of Karbala, all of a sudden an old woman comes out of her house. She has a baby in her arms. Who was this lady? She comes in and says, Oh Bishr, I hear that you have news about my son Hussein. Can you tell me, is my Hussein back? All of a sudden they say that Bishr asks, who is this lady? So they say to him, Oh Bishr, take it easy on her. This is Ummul Baneen, the mother of Abul Fadl Abbas. Every day she comes out and asks, is there any news from Karbala? Oh Bishr, please take it easy on her. So Bishr thinks, how do I tell this woman? 4 sons of hers have been killed in Karbala. Aba Abdullah, how do I tell her? So she says, is there any news about my son Hussein? Bishr says to her, أَعَظَمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْعَجْرِ يَا أُمُّ الْبَنِينَ بِمُصَابِنَا وَلَدِكِ الْجَعْفَرِ. May Allah have patience on you, Ya Ummul Baneen, on the death of your son Ja'far. She says, Ya Bishr, when did I ask you about Ja'far? Tell me about Hussein. Bishr then says, may Allah give you patience over the death of your son Uthman. He says, I did not ask you about that son. May Allah have patience over the death of your son Abdullah. She says, I did not ask you about Abdullah. Tell me about Hussein. He is my only son. May Allah sacrifice all my children for Hussein. At that moment Bishr says, Ya Ummul Baneen, may Allah have patience over the death of Abul Fadl Abbas. The moment Ummul Baneen hears that Abbas has been killed, she has a baby in her hands. She removes the baby from her hands. She places her hands on her head. The baby falls onto the ground. She says, Oh Bishr, surely you have cut my heart into pieces. But even though you have told me that Abbas has died, where is my Hussein? Is my Hussein okay? At that moment Bishr says, أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْأَجْرِ يَا أُمُّ الْبَنِينَ بِمُصَابِنَا وَلَدِكِ الْأَبَا Abdullah. May Allah give you patience, O Ummul Baneen, on the martyrdom of your son Aba Abdullah. She says, Ya Bishr, what happened to my son Hussein? Bishr would say, Ya Ummul Baneen, he was trampled on by the horses of Bani Umayyah. His head was raised on the spears of Bani Umayyah. All of a sudden Ummul Baneen would say, where is Zainab? Where is Zainab? They said she became a prisoner for Bani Umayyah. Where is Zainab right now? Bishr said she's gone home. So Ummul Baneen comes to the house of Zainab. Zainab told Bibi Fidda, look, we're in the state of mourning. If anybody comes, do not allow them to enter the house. We don't want to speak to anybody. Ummul Baneen comes, knocks on the door. They open the door. She sees Ummul Baneen. She lets her in. Now I ask you Muslims a question, and I'll end with this. I ask you one question. Sayyidah Zainab was raised by Ummul Baneen. Yes, Sayyidah Zainab was raised by Ummul Baneen. Ummul Baneen knew what Sayyidah Zainab looks like, right? You accept that? Ummul Baneen enters the room. All of a sudden she sees a woman on the prayer mat. Ummul Baneen looks, she looks at this lady. She says, "Oh lady, do you know where Zainab is? Do you know where Zainab is?" All of a sudden Zainab turns, looks towards Ummul Baneen. She says, "Oh Ummul Baneen, I am Zainab." Ummul Baneen can't believe this, so she asks, she says, "Anti Zainab al-Hashimiyya? Are you Zainab from the clan of Hashim?" Sayyidah Zainab says, "La, ana Zainab al-Masbiya. I am Zainab that was taken captive." They have a conversation. They tell her everything about what happened about Karbala. Ummul Baneen then goes to Jannatul Baqi. She sits down on the graves. She creates 5 graves with her fingers. Every day she cries and says what? La tad'u anni waiki Ummul Baneen. Do not call me Ummul Baneen any longer. Why? Because I have lost my boys in Karbala. And she used to always say one thing. She would say, "Ya Abbas, oh my son Abbas, they say that your hands were cut. I have a question. When a man falls from the horse, how does he shield that fall? He uses his hands to protect himself. Oh my son Abbas, you had no hands. So when you fell from the horse, how did you fall? You fell on top of your face, Ya Abbas. How did you land on the ground?"
Hussein.